Hey everyone, I hope you guys are having a great day, and I have some more Reddit stories for you guys to listen to. If you guys do enjoy, please leave a like, comment, or subscribe. With that said, let's get right into it. So this happened when my best friend was 17 and a half, and I was 17. In 1996, my best friend Chrissy and I are both smaller females. She was 5'4" and at the time weighed about 110 pounds, but was a soccer player and very athletic and strong. I'm 5'7", and at the time I weighed about 125 pounds. So we're both blue-eyed blondes, and we're often asked if we are sisters or even cousins. There's a large reservoir on the outskirts of her town, surrounded by a beautiful public park. We figured we'd be fine to walk around in the park, because lots of people go hiking there. I had gotten some really good quality weed, and we were looking forward to finding a peaceful place to smoke in the nature. I had my pipe ready in my pocket, and we're stoked. We choose to go out on a Saturday. It was a beautiful sunny day, and there were not many people there. So we parked our car by the reservoir in the mostly vacant lot. They had the two other cars. We did not see anybody there. When we got there, we walked around the water for a bit, and then chose a trail to go up. It was about 80 degrees out, and we were sweating, but we had some water in my small day pack. As we got about a quarter of a mile or so into the trail, I started having a weird feeling. I then looked at her and quietly asked, "Hey, do you feel something is off? Everything is just really quiet." And there were usually crickets chirping and frogs singing. It was totally silent. She looked at me and said, "Yeah, I think so." And then we heard some crackling of leaves about 60 feet behind us, and a bit to the left. We didn't see anybody there at the time, so we just continued forward. We were both getting pretty nervous, and we heard the crackling again, this time, but a little bit closer. We still didn't see anyone there. Each time we continued forward, we would hear footsteps a little bit more beside us. I thought we were being stalked. There was a turnoff to the left, which led to a clearing by a large rock about 12 feet high, with a large sturdy rope anchored on it to climb up to the top. It was part of a steep hillside off the cliff. The rope to climb it was anchored to the ground, as well as no one can move it. I told her we need to get up that rock. Now, we need high ground. She nodded, and I went up, first time with me right behind her. We flew up that rock, clinging to the rope tightly, and going as fast as we could. When we reached the top, we turned around to see an older man, probably about 45, with a slimmer build, and he was wearing a jacket, jeans, and glasses. Coming into the clearing, he was about 20 feet away. He looked at us with a cold, vacant expression. I got goosebumps looking at him. I shouted, "Hi! Will you please leave us alone? We're trying to have some privacy here." He made no response, and with a blank expression slowly started walking towards the rope, which led to the top of the rock. My friend at this point was really scared, and then asked what we should do. I saw a large rock about 8 inches and almost square to my right, so I grabbed it. I was really surprised at how heavy it was, but my adrenaline was going, so I lifted it easily. I told her to look around for the biggest rocks she could find, and fast move them next to us. Hold the biggest one, and if that guy tries to come up, we'll throw them at him, and then hit him as hard as we can. Aim for his head. Fortunately, there was a pile of sizable rocks behind us to the left, like someone had made a ring to hold up a fire on top of the rock, and then move them away. She brought a few over and held a large one to herself. My friend and I stood close to the edge of the rock, holding out makeshift weapons. I looked down to the base of the rock, where the guy was considering the rope. He looked at us again, with very cold blue eyes and no expression. Then he reached his hand for the rope. I shouted loudly, "Do not come up here. If you try to come up here, you're going to get really hurt. We were aiming for your head with these rocks. Now get the fuck away from us." I held the rock close to my chest so he could see it. My friend next to me was doing the exact same thing, and we had a pile of more rocks as well. He blinked his eyes and cocked his head a little bit, then released his hand from the rope. and then silently backed away. He backed to the edge of the clearing through the brush, still watching us. And then we heard his crunching footsteps go back through the woods. And until we couldn't hear him anymore, we stayed on the rock for another 20 minutes. Maybe a bit more, just watching and waiting. There was no other way to access the rock except for the steep hillside covered with poison oak, so we didn't think he'd try it, and plus, we'd be able to hear him if he did. After we didn't hear anything for 20 minutes, we decided to make a break for her car. We threw several rocks down to the ground and hit the dark with a particularly satisfying thud. Chrissy went down first, while I was keeping watch, just in case he'd come back. When I was scaling down the rock, she was holding a rock getting ready to throw it, full force. If he returned, fortunately, he did not. We each grabbed the largest rock we could carry. We put a few smaller ones in our pocket for good measure. Then we headed back to our car. On the trail, very carefully and quietly. The crickets were chirping again, but we were still extremely cautious. We made it back to her car without incident and quickly left. That was the last time I've ever hiked in that park. If suicides, death threats, or harmful language triggers you, please do not listen to this. So this happened back in 2019 to 2021, and it still sticks with me today. I will be using fake names for myself and the man that I'm talking about. Mary for me and Dennis for him. When I was 13, I met someone on Discord. He was funny, smart, and exactly my type. He was also 16. I don't know my logic with that. Being okay at 13, but I was stupid and naive, and we became called close friends. After about 3 months of knowing him, I told him I had feelings for him. We then ended up dating. We lived across country from each other, and we were basically just friends. But whatever. So as we were dating, he starts basically grooming me as a kid, who was always on the internet and was also exposed to Kick. I was used to this behavior, and I thought it was fine. He had me send nude photos, gross messages, and pretty much worship him. I wasn't allowed to talk to people on Discord without him there, and stuff like that. He told me that he would kill himself if I ever left, or how he was always on drugs because he was so sad. He was also incredibly racist, and he thought Nazi jokes were okay. I'm so mad at myself for now realizing that it wasn't okay. Back then, he ended up cheating on me with his ex and tossed me out the door. He doesn't talk to me anymore, and he says we shouldn't talk anymore because we weren't together. Here's when it gets bad. This happened over 5 years ago, and I have a spotty memory of this time. A new account pops up in the server we met on and starts saying horrible things about me. It was a server of a mutual friend. Mary's a fat whale, Mary's an N-word, and more things of the sort. The accounts have names like Jerry Touches Kids or Big Fat Whale, etc. I got in trouble with the server owners because it was my fault that people were seeing these things. It's like they think I had told them to spam these things about me or something. The accounts also start messaging me, too. Kill myself, die, how I'm a whale and a whore, and more. I ended up blocking every account and moved on with my life. Great. It was over with. Or so I thought it was. Fast forward a year, the summer of 2019, everything starts up again. The messages, him telling people lies and rumors, and direct threats. I was sent unsolicited porn, death threats, slurs, and how I should kill myself because no one cares. At that time I had undiagnosed depression and anxiety, and I almost did kill myself. I went to therapy and tried to get over it. In 2020, right where the quarantine happened, I got a boyfriend. I was super happy and came back out of my shell. He and I would play games on Discord together, and I joined more servers. Around 2 months later, I got another message. Someone had messaged me named Lily. I believed it was a normal profile, and we were in a server together, so I thought nothing of it. She then had messaged me how I was, and I had never talked to her before, so I was kind of confused. She said we had a long conversation about mental health the day before, so she wanted to make sure I was alright. I asked who she was, and what she was talking about. and she said something like, "Oh, you told me about this. You said you take medicine for schizophrenia, and you must have missed a dose. Were you off your meds?" I was extremely confused and scared, because I never talked to this person, and certainly didn't have schizophrenia. After about 10 minutes of this charade, I realized it was Dennis. I blocked the account and didn't accept a new friend request. The next day, I got hundreds of messages with the same contents that I previously mentioned. The threats, porn, and much more. I was so terrified, and I'd asked my boyfriend for help. He told me to make a new account, and did not friend any of other mutual friends, so he couldn't find me. I did, which caused an affiliated Twitch account that I had spent years building. I changed all of my accounts, deleted most, and made new ones. The messages found me yet again. I had no idea how these new accounts were tied to me. I got fed up. I had asked a mutual friend that I thought I could trust some personal information about D, so that I could go to the police and possibly get a restraining order or something. I didn't totally know how the police handle these issues. Months go by and nothing, until the fall of 2021, in which Dennis messaged me calling me a stupid whore, and how he'll always find me, how I'm so fat and dumb and no one loves me. I completely isolated myself and deleted more accounts. I was never able to go to the police because I had no information, like his full name or address. It's been 2 years, and every day I worry if he lives near me, if he knows where I live, or where I go to school. I recently found out that he had a website, and he made YouTube videos. He made YouTube videos referencing me in 2022. His actual copyright claim is something like Mary the Fat Whale Incorporated. I can't find it anymore, so I put the closest to what I remembered it was hell, and I'm still worried about every day that he will find me. I believe he has a Reddit account as well and can find this. I really hope we don't meet again, Dennis. I wish you the absolute worst in your life. This happened in July, I believe. It was around 1 a.m. and it was still about 80 degrees Fahrenheit outside. And where I live, AC isn't very common, so I, 22 years old, was sitting in the living room with all the windows and doors open. I head out to smoke, and since everything was open, and I didn't want the house to smell like smoke, so I walked down the driveway and sat on the curb. There was a man standing on the same side of the street, but a block down, just staring at me, and I got really uncomfortable, so I got up and crossed the road. The way my triplex is set up is there was a 3-car driveway, then a few stairs up that lead into the yard, and then my door to the right. My neighbors straight ahead, and some more stairs to my other neighbors upstairs. I live somewhere with a lot of homeless people, and they'll come up the driveway to look in our trash for cans or whatever, and that's fine. They never go up past the steps. So I'm standing on the other side of the road, and I watch the man stand and stare at me, and then he proceeds to walk all the way into my yard, and I start to panic because I didn't lock the doors and all the windows were open. So I start to walk down the street, and I see a man who looks normal, and I stop him and ask if he could just pretend to know me. In retrospect, this wasn't my brightest decision, but whatever. So me and this man are standing there, just talking, and I'm explaining the situation, and we're both just smoking a cigarette, and we're looking at my house. So I'm a few houses down now, and the man keeps peeking around the line of trees next to my place. He peeks around the corner a few more times, and eventually walks up to me. I'm scared shitless, and I'm shaking, and he asks me for a cigarette, and I go to hand him one, and he goes, "Why are you shaking? Are you scared?" And I was just like, nope. Have a great night. He walks away, and the other dude stands there for a bit longer with me. and the scary man starts peeking around another corner, just staring at me again. This dude walks me to my house, and I just shut all the windows and doors, and I just dealt with the heat. I'm grateful for the random dude, and don't know what I would have done if he wasn't there. I'm 23, and I live in a small city college town, where homelessness, largely due to drug abuse, is a big issue. Down the road from my house at the time, there is a neighborhood Walmart that I always went to. Whenever I would go to this Walmart, I was always looking over my shoulder because of how many homeless people tended to hang out at this particular store, and have an occasion followed me into and out of the store. As a woman, in general, I'm always on guard, but because of the circumstances surrounding this store, I tend to get very paranoid when I'm there. Anyways, in the middle of the day on a weekday, I decided to stop by said Walmart to grab something small. When I pull into this Walmart, I always try to park as close to the front as possible, with my driver's side facing the store, so people can see me better. This day, I couldn't find a close parking spot. I instead found the closest thing I could find, and as soon as I pulled into the spot, I had a sinking feeling in my gut. I looked to my left to see two men in a black SUV, and the driver staring at me. I looked away for a second, and when I looked back, I saw the guy in the passenger seat staring at me, as if the driver had told him to look over. There's no way to perfectly describe this, but the look felt almost like a nod of approval to his friend that made me very uneasy. Against my better judgment, I decided to turn off my car and head inside. I figured I was only getting something small, so I'd be in and out, no biggie. I grabbed what I wanted, and when I headed to the self-checkout, there was an issue that caused me to have to move to a cashier to check me out, and the whole process ended up taking a lot longer than anticipated. While I was waiting on the cashier, I noticed a man that was in the passenger seat. He was pacing outside the front doors of the Walmart, looking in. I immediately felt that my gut was correct from earlier, and that he was waiting for me to head back to my car. I turned my back to him to check out, and then when I looked back, I noticed he had walked into the store. At this point I thought I was crazy, and that the guy's probably coming inside to get some stuff, and I'm just paranoid from past experiences at this store. Anyways, as I'm leaving, I remembered a TikTok I saw where someone said they had interviewed a man who attacked women, and the man gave a few different reasons as to why he wouldn't attack particular women. One of them being that some women were on FaceTime. As I'm leaving the store and heading to my car, I decided to FaceTime my best friend, who I knew would answer the phone. As soon as I'm walking up to my car, she answers, and I look up to see the driver on the passenger side of his vehicle, where I would get into my car, blocking my way with his back passenger door wide open. My heart immediately dropped, and I asked the man to move out of the way. He looked down at my phone and then closed the door and moved out of the way. I'm assuming he looked at my phone to see if I was actually on FaceTime with someone. I quickly got into my car and started to drive away. As I was leaving, I saw the man who was in the passenger seat, who had been pacing in front of the store, coming around the corner quickly, with a grin on his face and nothing in his hands from the store. I know I can be very paranoid, especially when it comes to this kind of thing. However, the whole encounter felt odd and didn't add up in a way that I felt could be written off that easily. Any thoughts? Hope you guys enjoy those stories. I love hearing from you guys. If you guys like them, please leave a comment. With that said, as always, stay depressed.